So in the last video, we are looking at the uh, the different types of cloud models, and today we'll look at the cloud benefits and considerations. So, what are the cloud computing advantages, right? So, there are several advantages that a cloud environment has over physical environment. So, first of all, it's high availability um, and depends on SLA. Your cloud-based apps can provide a continuous user experience with no apparent downtime. Scalability can scale vertically and horizontally. Scale vertically to increase compute capacity by adding RAM or CPUs, or horizontally by adding more instances, adding more VMs. Elasticity, you can configure cloud-based apps to take uh, advantage of auto scaling, so your apps always have the resources they need. So this is basically uh, dealing with auto scaling. And and then we have agility, deploy and configure cloud-based resources quickly as your app requirements change. Geo distribution, you can always deploy apps and data to regional data centers across the globe, thereby ensuring that your customers always had the best performance in the region. And then you have disaster recovery. By taking advantage of cloud-based backup services, data application, and geo distribution, you can deploy your apps with confidence that come from knowing that the data is safe in the event of disaster. So these concepts will be um, described in more detail later on, and obviously we need to know that in 104 if you're going to take it, um, especially about disaster recovery and scalability. um, so all right, so what is the difference between capital expenses and operating expenses? So capital expenditure is, all right, so it's the upfront spending of money on physical infrastructure and then deducting that upfront upfront expense over time. The upfront cost from capex has a value that reduces over time. So capex is just an abbreviation of um, capital expenditure, and then you have operational expenditure, and that is spending money on services or products now and being billed for them now. And you can deduct this expense in the same year you spend it, and there is no upfront cost as you pay for a service or product as you use it. So capital is talking about upfront spending. So in other words, when Tailwind Traders owns its infrastructure, it buys equipment and that goes onto its balance sheets as assets. Because capital investment was made, accounts categorize this transaction as capex was the first one, right? And over time, to account for the assets limited useful lifespan, assets are deprecated or amortized. And when we talk about cloud services, they are categorized as an OPEX, which is an abbreviation for operational expenditure, and because of the consumption model. So there is no asset for uh, Tailwind traders to amortize, and its cloud service provider Azure manages the costs that are associated with the purchase and lifespan of the physical equipment. As a result, OPEX has a direct impact on net profit, taxable income, and the associated expenses on the balance sheet. To summarize, CapEx requires significant upfront costs as well as ongoing maintenance and support expenditures. So that is CapEx, based on what you've seen, it would be mainly applied in on-premises environments which require physical infrastructure, whereas OPEX would be more of cloud services. The consumption-based model, so Tailwind is only responsible for the cost or the computing resources. So you're not talking about the hardware, you're not talking about the cost of buying a server. It's just the compute resources, the RAM, the CPU that they're going to use. So cloud computing is a consumption-based model. So cloud service providers operate on a consumption-based model, which means that end users only pay for the resources that they use. And whatever they use is what they pay for. And a consumption-based model has many benefits, and which includes so no upfront costs, right? Unlike in capex, you don't have any upfront spending. There is no need to purchase and manage costly infrastructure or hardware that users might not use to its fullest, um, and the ability to pay for additional resources when they're needed. So it's not pretty complex to purchase new. If you want to scale up, it can be done very easily rather than the traditional way of buying hardware and procuring it. So the ability to pay for additional resources when they're needed, and the ability to stop paying for resources that are no longer needed. So they can terminate it whenever you don't need it. So that is basically why one would consider or why one should consider using cloud, right? And so we looked at the advantages, we looked at the difference between capital expenses and operating expenses, and 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 we have summarized and it's seen that cloud computing is a consumption-based model. So in the next unit, we're going to describe the different cloud services. So until then, see you next time.